Awesome. So I'm going to ask some questions because I know some people are like, who is this man and why is he important? Why do we need to be hearing from him? And you guys are going to find out in a quick second because it's literally groundbreaking and really freaking exciting. So, Ben, can you tell everyone who you are and what you do, like your new role and why it's so important?
I'm so excited to be here, first of all. I am so inspired by the designers of this event, the clothes coming down the runway, the creative energy, and the creative. So thank you. Thank you for having me here. We've known each other for, I feel like, over almost 10 years. And the work I've been doing has really been to push forward this movement for truly intersectionally inclusive fashion. And I'm currently chair of a fashion program at Ryerson University in Toronto.
That's how we met.
Yes, bringing you to Toronto to talk to our students. And I'm then taking on the role starting July 1st of Dean at Fashion at Parsons in New York.
Now,
and yeah.
Like I need you to say that one more time because you are bringing inclusive fashion to where?
To Parsons in New York, where I have, yes, but I'm going to tell you what they're doing already, but I think I want to jump back for a second.
Okay.
Because I want people to know this is something that, as you know, we've been working on for a long time. When I was a teenager, one of my friends had taken a modeling course and she was told she was just too big to be a model. And of course, this made no sense to me. I thought she was beautiful, she should be on the runway, she should be in magazines. And so at 14, I sent her photos off to a local magazine in my hometown in Canada, in Ottawa, with a note saying I thought the model should be in the magazine. Didn't think much of it. I was a teenager, but got a phone call back from the editor wanting to hire her and assuming that I was her agent. And I was like, yes, I guess I am. But really, with that, my friend got a job. She didn't have to lose weight. And I started a modeling agency. And really, the goal of that business was to represent models that weren't being represented by other agencies at that time. Really thinking about models of different sizes, ages, disabilities, races and ethnicities, really to advocate for inclusion. And so that was my entry, and I ran that business for 12 years.
Wow. And so, bringing inclusive fashion into the schools, like we have been calling for this, and of all schools, Parsons, right? Of all schools, Parsons, which is at the top of like the fashion school, like name, reputation. So really like ushering in this wave of change, like what can we expect a little bit? Because in my mind is going all the places, right? Bringing in mannequins, courses, like to include how to address, market, cater to the plus size body. But we're bringing this inclusive space to Parsons in the fashion school space. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I think as chair of the fashion program at Ryerson, this has been the work of my colleagues and myself for really the past kind of 3 years. And it's been a systemic change, right? It's not just introducing one class, but this is really about how can we ground fashion education, first in a deep understanding of like how fat phobia operates, size discrimination, how that's deeply intersectional, and how that experience plays out for folks at many different positions. So we go in with that understanding of how this view's replicated in fashion and society. But then it's opening up. How can we teach to design for all bodies, particularly for like plus size bodies, and recognizing that that does not stop at a size 18 or 20, right? It's really how do we have extended sizing that is truly inclusive, and teaching that from a design, from a marketing and business, from a communications, and just from a worldview perspective. That is what this really revolution is. And that's not where it stops, right? It's bringing in faculty who have this deep knowledge, bringing in students who are passionate about designing plus size, many of whom have lived experiences wearing size 18, wearing size 30, and want to bring that lived experience of living in their bodies to design. this is what we want to do, right? So it's foundational knowledge, but there's also clear pathways for students that want to do this work. And I'm so excited about that, because
I
that's,
mean, that is like beyond, like I've got like literal goosebumps, because like, you know, to really affect change is really kind of get into that root, that educational part where people come out of the schools and they like, you know, you see it how many times over on, you know, somebody's runway show, and they're like, oh my God, a plus body. And then they freak out. And it's like, yo, like this is, you know, these are just women. Like we need our bodies. Like, you know, we love fashion. Like, you know, I'm over here in an indie designer wearing a leopard, like floor length dress thingamajig, and I'm having fun with it, right? Like I want those same options. And so with that being the case, like, you know, you start July 1 and you mentioned that there were some things already starting to happen. Can you talk a little bit about like kind of some of those things, especially for that person who's like, wait a minute, I can go to Parsons to hone my craft. Like what's already happening?
yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I even applied to Parsons and was interested in the role was because the school has been doing such deep work anyway around social justice. There's been some really exciting work happening in size diversity. And obviously, like all fashion schools, we haven't done it perfectly anywhere in the world. We still have a long way to go. But there was work happening, and I think even more important, there was a genuine desire in the community to continue to make these changes. And so that's really what I want to do. And I think part of that really is engaging and having dialogues and conversations and bringing in community, right? Everyone here is creating this incredible, vibrant plus size fashion industry. It exists. It is present. And so we know none of this knowledge needs to be reinvented. It's about building relationships, and it's about being like, how can we collaborate? How can we partner? How can we share knowledge and resources and really create this vibrant plus size culture? And I think that's what I'm excited to do. I'm excited to develop those relationships and partnerships and learn from each other and build this together, continue the work you're doing.
And I love this. So, you know, from, you know, does this mean from an inclusive space? If you guys are just tuning in, we're here with Dr. Ben Berry. He's the new Dean of Fashion at Parsons, right? Parsons, y'all, right? One of the top design schools, bringing inclusivity into the fashion design school space. I mean, for a while, like we've known, we've talked about it, we have fussed, we have yelled, we have screamed about like being included in the conversation from the beginning, right? And so here we have someone who kind of blazed the path over in Canada, bringing that same passion and gumption into Parsons in New York. So for that designer, that person who is curious, like what changes can we see, especially if that person's already at the school now and thought they couldn't? Like, is there anything that you can give us or share with us that we can expect to see like kind of immediately?
Yeah, I mean, so since I don't start till July 1st, I don't know yet until I'm actually there on the ground.
Right.
But I'll tell you what I'm interested in. I'm really interested.
We can go with that.
Yeah, I'm really interested in, like, first and foremost, developing scholarships, bursaries, internships, programs for students specifically interested in designing plus, to ensure that there is barriers that exist based on so many different categories and factors, that those barriers are removed by providing financial resources, making sure that those students enter the School of Fashion at Parsons and are in a culture and curriculum that is supporting and nurturing and allows them to thrive on their own terms. So that's working with the incredible faculty and community there to really imagine, what does curriculum look like across fashion business and design and communication that really centers plus size fashion in all its diversity. So understanding that right through a deeply intersectional lens, thinking of plus size fashion that's for women, for men, for non-binary and trans folks, that's really inclusive. That's critical. And understanding that knowledge of people in their bodies is design knowledge. And so how can we really create those paths where folks who live the experience of being plus are centered as designers who get the credit, the degrees,
Right.
The profit, that is what's critical. And so I really am interested in creating those pathways. So there's more plus size folks in the industry, more plus size folks graduating with fashion degrees,
Come
who
on.
are in business, design, comms, and are really creating the fashion world we all want to see.
And I think that's also going to usher in, like, equitable opportunities for experts, for plus marketing, plus, like, to bring in some of these studied folks who have like this background and knowledge and experience to come in and teach, adjunct, and come in to be able to give that information and to nerd out, or even, provide additional resources, because I think it's really important that instead of recreating the wheel, that we tap those who've been here, those who are studied, who have, like, done the papers and the dissertations, and that resource that we already have, like you mentioned at the beginning, that we tap those resources to give us, like, to give these students authentic education, right? Not something that's very in the cloud, right?
Yeah. Completely. I think this is about guest critics. This is about faculty members. This is about respecting that this knowledge already exists. We're not creating it. So how can we really develop like mutually beneficial and supportive collaborations and partnerships to ensure that we're bringing in the right folks who have the knowledge to support all of this curriculum change, act as mentors and guest critics, provide opportunities with internships, support students, right? It's about relationship building. And that's, I think, what I'm the most excited about, because this knowledge, I mean, everything you're doing in this event, like proof, the knowledge is here, the design is here, we're doing it. So how can these relationships be built? And I think it's such an exciting place to be for, I think, the plus industry, because the industry is existing, but we need to center it in education, because education is that birthplace of practices, the worldviews of the next generation of fashion creatives and business people. And so how can we ensure those worldviews and those practices are truly inclusive of size diversity in a very real, authentic, and kind of transformational way? So I'm excited for that. I think it's it's going to really, I think, just continue to make this fashion industry we want to see.
I'm so excited. We actually have a question from our team. They asked, Dr. Barry, what designers would be ideal mentorship for this type of plus program? And I guess they were also asking me, the Curvy Fashionista, but, like, for what you're, so do you imagine like this being new designers, is, straight from high school designers, or is this a little open?
I think it's open. So I think that in terms of obviously the experts who will be coming in and who we can like develop relationships with, I think those are people who have been working in the plus space for years, right? They exist. I think when it comes to students, these are students that are interested in all the different programs, whether it's like a 4-year degree, whether it's a certificate, whether it's like continuing ed. I think it's really comprehensive in providing that knowledge at all different spaces so students can decide what's best for them.
That's very smart. And I think, there's going to be, I can already see some certain plus designers that we can connect you guys to, right? To be some of those mentors, to kind of give guidance, to come in on some of those, classes where they get those critiques. Mm-hmm. I can already see how that could be extremely helpful, but not only just to the students, but also to the designers, right? To be able to give back and to help nurture. When you see it, like, it just gives like another burst of excitement and kind of passion. So Linda actually had another question, which is very interesting, because she went the other direction when it comes to inclusivity. And so she was talking about age inclusivity. Plus size ads in the overall industry is still not representative for us mature, curvy women. So I'm curious, as you've mentioned some of the intersections of inclusivity at Parsons, or some of the goals, like, has age been discussed? Or is this something more about, like, like kind of a second nature to start bringing in people of different ages?
I think that's such an important question. And I think that in all the work I've done around inclusion, right, the center is an intersectional perspective. So we can't talk about size if we're not also talking about age, if we're not talking about race, if we're not talking about gender and disability. So I think that when we teach and talk about designing plus, it has to be intersectional, not just in, right, like the clothing that's being created, but ensuring that there's access for designers who are at sort of these accesses where they're facing sort of multiple marginalizations from fashion and society at large, that there's specific programs targeting. And so I think that that's critical. And I think it's also in many ways honoring really the movement of where plus size fashion is coming from, and right, it's coming from plus women of color, right? Like that needs to be credited, honored, respected, and brought into the school. And so I think I'm excited with that. And so age is definitely part of this, because I think the conversation, right, this is more than just creating clothes so everyone can dress in ways that fit them, that express them. This is changing culture, because ultimately what plus fashion does is it's really kind of knocking down that phobia, it's challenging it and creating a completely new narrative of all bodies.
It's almost like claiming it, right? It's reclaiming the narrative, and it's no longer allowing for society to dictate to us what we are worth, what we should be wearing, what we should have access to. It's actually kind of democratizing it, especially democratizing it as at the beginning, right? And kind of like normalizing it from that educational space. So because then you have those who go through marketing or who go through PR or go through any other kind of channel, like having that looped in, that inclusivity conversation, what it truly means. I'm so excited. Like, I don't know if you guys realize how much I'm nerding out right now, because this impact is going to really shake. No pressure, Ben. No pressure. But if you guys are just tuning in, if you're just tuning in, you're wondering who I'm talking to, we are here at the finale of the Cultivate Awards, and we are joined by Dr. Ben Berry, the new Dean of Fashion at Parsons, y'all. And he has been brought in from Canada and Ryerson. In Canada, like, he championed inclusivity and diversity, plus sizes in fashion, and they were, bringing that in and looping that in through the education and curriculum. And so now he's going to be coming through and affecting positive change at Parsons, of all places. Oh my gosh. So if you have questions for Ben, for Dr. Berry, please drop your questions in the comments. We are catching them. But I'm curious, Ben, like, what is your long-term vision, right, for your impact? Like, if you were to be able to fast forward to look back, like, what impact do you want to have at Parsons?
Well,
big question.
Big question. I think that there's two things like I really want to do with the community. I think first and foremost, it's continue to develop relationships with the broader kind of fashion industry, and particularly designers and creatives that have been championing inclusion and diversity for years, and to building those relationships. I think that's critical. But I think my real hope is that we will be graduating generations of designers that don't have a narrow knowledge of what fashion is, that have an expansive knowledge, but most importantly, that don't look like a homogenous group. So you're graduating designers, right, particularly who are Black, Indigenous, Asian, Latinx, designers that are plus size and fat identified, designers that are disabled and trans and non-binary, and all of these different intersections. So they can, right, so who's creating our clothes, who's creating our images reflects us and their lived experience in their bodies as knowledge, because it is. And so that's really what I want to see, because if that happens, we're going to see generations of fashion creatives, business people making decisions, creating collections that truly represent their own lived experiences. And those lived experiences are going to be brought to bear in all decision making. And so that's what I'm excited for. How can we create those pathways to bring in not just like diverse worldviews, but to really bring in diverse students?
That's beautiful. And that is something that is like one space that's like literally has been untapped for the longest time, has been in the education space, the fashion education space, allowing, I can't even tell you how many times I've heard the stories of students who wanted to present plus collections for their senior project and who have been discouraged or who have been minimized and who have not had the space. So can you just imagine how much more creativity and resources and opportunities and options can come to the forefront by just encouraging this newness?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so often, right, fashion has had this really narrow definition that it was like born in Paris and it's for this size and this race and this like social class. And we know none of that's true. I mean, if indigenous designers have taught us anything, it's that fashion has existed on like this land since time immemorial, that so many cultures and peoples have been practicing fashion forever as resistance. And I think what this movement is, it's reclaiming fashion away from this narrow stronghold and being like, no, 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 no. I do fashion. My family and ancestors have always been doing fashion. And now I'm going to bring this knowledge to bear and I'm going to own it. So really, I think this is about reclaiming fashion as belonging to all of us and all of our bodies and all of our histories, and not letting it be this narrow definition, but really fashions that are plural and are part of all of us. And I think that's exciting.
That's a good ass line right there, sir. Like that is like that is amazing. That is a word. If you guys are just joining us, like we're literally here at the finale of the Cultivate Awards. We have our guest, Dr. Ben Berry, who is the new incoming Dean of Fashion at Parsons. Okay, Fashion School Parsons. So if you've been an aspiring designer, have wanted to go to design school, have friends who've wanted to go to design school, but you knew that, you know, like you didn't think that they would support inclusive fashion, the tides are changing, my friend. And Ben is here to help usher in that change, right? To really have these conversations and nurture those relationships. And so to go to Maggie's point, Maggie says, fashion knows no size, ethnicity, age, gender, no boundaries. Yes, Maggie, yes, yes. And so with that being the case, like, you know, I'm curious as to, when you say those relationships, like if someone who has been in this space and they wanted to connect with you, excuse me, if they wanted to connect with you, like how could someone get in touch, especially if they are a leader, if they have that studied background in the plus size space? Like, is that something that someone can reach out to you to connect with?
Yes, 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 yes. I am so looking. I mean, obviously, as someone not just like new to Parsons in New York, but new to the US, I am so excited to meet people. And I definitely want people to reach out on email and social media, to get in touch with me. I'm interested in people that are interested in like, you know, really like continuing to build, I think, this bridge between what's happening in industry and how that can support education. Because I think so much of the knowledge is there, it exists. And so
right, it does.
Right, it does. So how can we work together to really center that within the educational space? And particularly so many of, I think, right, the stereotypes, the mishaps that often have happened in plus size don't continue. I think, right, like experts, stylists, designers know what to do, know how to design, know what wearers want. And so I think it's really building those relationships.
And so can someone, will you be able to, can they email you? Do you have a website, like, you know, so they can introduce themselves? Like, is there?
Yes. So on Instagram, I'm Ben Drakberry. So BenDrakBarry. People can follow me, DM me. When I get my new school email kind of official and public, I'll share that with you. But yeah, please reach out. I'm here to have a conversation, to meet you, and to figure out how we can work together and just continue this momentum and this work to change the culture of fashion.
I appreciate you. I appreciate this. This has been amazing. I'm so grateful to you. Congrats again for everything that you've been doing, everything that you're about to do, because for some people who don't understand its importance just right now, they'll be able to be like, oh, this is who was on here, and this is why it's important, and this is why it means something. Plus size fashion is coming to Parsons, y'all. Okay? Like plus size fashion is coming to Parsons Design School, like School of Design. Like that is major. And we're chatting with the Dean of Fashion, Dr. Ben Berry. And let's see, Stacy says, love this chat. Thank you, Ben and Marie, for this focused effort to change the culture and the future of fashion. We're here for it, Miss Stacy. We're here for it. We're here for it. So thank you again so much, Ben. I appreciate you here. I appreciate you taking time out of your Sunday to chat with us. And we're about to get into some more fashion. I'm excited. I hope you stay and kind of like, watch the rest of these designs to see what's coming up in plus size fashion.
I will be here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having space for me. And thank you for the work you're doing. Like we're just going to continue to amplify this and continue this change. You're doing it already.
Thank you so much, hon. Have an amazing one.